Okay. Hello, everyone. We are going to wait another 1 minute and allow everyone to join us. Yeah. Okay. I will start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Inform Consult and Colligo. We are thrilled to have you join us as we explore the complexities of information management in our rapidly evolving digital landscape. Our session is titled Navigating Governance and Compliance Information Management in a Changing World. I'm excited to introduce our expert speakers today. First, we have Richard.jeffrey-cook, the Head of Information and Records Management at Inform Consult. With over 37 years of experience, Richard has provided IT solutions and consultancy to prestigious organizations as a European Central Bank, House of Parliament, and National Archives. Joining Richard is Tbrady, the CEO of Colligo. Tim is passionate about improving information governance for organizations worldwide. Before acquiring Colligo in 2019, Tim spent many years in technology sectors with Picton Mahoney Asset Management and RBC Capital Markets. Before we dive in, I'd like to remind everyone about the Q&A session at the end of webinar. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat through the session. Tim and Richard will be answering them during the Q&A part at the end. Thank you, and let's get started.
Thank you, Agnes, and welcome everyone to this session. I'm Richard.jeffrey-cook, and as Agnes has indicated, I'm Head of Information and Records Management at Inform Consult Limited. We're at IFC. We are an independent management consultancy who focuses on getting value from your information and helping you achieve that through our variety of skills. We're looking to maximize the value of information, reduce your costs, minimize your risk, and generally make life easier, which is what we're about. So let's press on and look at the challenges that we're hoping we can address today. So the information management world continues to evolve and change as it has done really for the last 30 odd years since we started to transform many systems from paper records through to digital and electronic information systems. And these challenges seem to get as great as they ever have done. Certainly information security and the security risks seem to be just as dangerous, if not more so, than they ever have been. We've had examples only this week with Ticketmaster just being the latest example of an organization that has had personal and confidential data stolen. And claims have been made that up to 560 million users' personal data has been stolen, which is, when you start looking at it in those numbers, is really quite a frightening aspect. And previously we've had serious examples. One of the perhaps more interesting ones to be aware of is the hack on the British Library systems. The British Library were subject to an attack last October, and that attack took out their server systems. So while their desktop information was desktop architecture was fine, it was their server systems, including their file servers, that were attacked. The reason this one is worth being aware of is that to improve awareness of these issues, the details of the case have been published and can be found through a Google search. on the internet, and it makes certainly useful and cautionary reading. So legacy systems can be vulnerable, but also cloud systems themselves have the risk. And in fact, the Ticketmaster hack that I mentioned seems to have been due to weaknesses in the Snowflake database system that many big operators use as a cloud system for operating their data. So these security risks have certainly been challenging. But security is only one aspect. Information is no good unless we can access it, and how we present our information to the users is still extremely important. And we need systems that make it easy to retrieve information, but also to store information in the right places. And emails being one of the main forms of communication between our businesses is often crucial for that aspect, because it is these boundaries where we interact with the world, with our information systems, which often are where we need to generate our records that are our evidence of our business activities. Along with that, if we may say, well, the way we need to address this is to move forward and move to new, more modern, up-to-date systems, but migration itself carries its own risks. We've seen organizations where they've migrated data and in the process have revealed information which on perhaps their older legacy systems was actually insecure, but nobody was aware of it because it was tucked away in some hidden part of a file server where nobody regularly accessed. But when that data is then migrated across to a new system with better search facilities, those searches make the information available perhaps to people where we didn't want that to happen. So these are amongst the many challenges that we find with managing our information. But ultimately, our requirements still come down to some pretty basic fundamental needs. And that is, first of all, that our information should be secure. And by secure, I mean that it should be available to those who need it, but restricted from those who shouldn't be able to access it. And that is a two-way thing. It's no good just locking everything down, because that in itself merely encourages unnecessary duplication, and those duplicated copies may not be properly managed and therefore in themselves provide a greater security risk. We need the information to be accessible so that we can actually find it when we need it. And so often we see organizations where so much information is just actually recreated, often less well than the original, because the staff can't access the information when they need to. And finally, and perhaps becoming ever more crucially, the information needs to be accurate, this is becoming more and more important as our processes become ever more automated. The actions we take depend on the information that we're using to make decisions, and if the information is poor, then our decision making will be poor. So all of this actually provides the opportunity, and the opportunity is that if we have good information management systems, actually the benefits we can get from that are greater than ever. And I think this is demonstrated in the way that we are seeing the current phase of everything artificial intelligence or AI. The thing with AI tools is that they can take advantage of good information, but as we've seen so regularly, they can also be misled by poor or indeed out-of-date information, and that leads ultimately to the examples which you get on the media of when these tools can really do some terribly daft things. To err is human, but to really foul things up, you need a computer. So, what are the basic ideas that we can do to actually start to rectify these things? So, first of all, you have to know what information you've got. If you don't know what you've got, you can't manage it effectively. And that is where the likes of an information asset register come in. My second suggestion is actually staff need training. It seems so often that this is the element that organisations don't want to invest in. Maybe because it's difficult to see the returns on the investment straight away, but there's so many aspects which can be quite crucial to this. Training in good information practices and security, understanding compliance where it needs to be achieved. Too often compliance can seem as an obstacle to getting work done, but effective training can so often improve productivity and performance in the information management space. The third area we would suggest is classification, the appropriately categorizing information. And this can be done to aid business activity, but also to in the context of security and applying things like security labels, and also in the whole process of retention and disposal of information. Disposal being crucial because partly because we may be required to if it relates to personal data, but also to ensure that we are not clogging up our systems with irrelevant and out-of-date information. And the final aspect of this is actually also having the right tools and being able to present information, let users work with information in the ways that are effective for them. So this is where I will then move on and introduce Tim, who is going to talk about how Colligo can help with that regard.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. That was great. And just a note quickly before I jump in here is feel free to drop into the chat or the Q&A at any time. Any questions you have, I'd like to keep it pretty collaborative, so I'll try and get to questions as we go, or definitely at the end we have a Q&A section as well. So please feel free to drop them in the chat or Q&A wherever makes sense as we go. So yeah, so just about Colligo, for those who don't know of us, we're a Canadian company. We've been developing applications for SharePoint and for Microsoft 365 since 2000, so 24 years or so. We work with organizations around the globe. We're headquartered in Canada, but as you can see from the list here, we have Australia, New Zealand, and obviously quite a few customers in the UK as well. And really with our applications, we try and save you time and increase productivity, improve governance and compliance, and then also make sure we maximize your investment in Microsoft 365 that you've already made. We're also a Microsoft preferred content AI partner and a Microsoft Silver partner, as well as the part of the AIM Leadership Council. Next slide, please, Richard. Great. And so I'm going to talk to you about email management, making sure you have the right tools to be able to do many of the things Richard had described. But before I do, I'm going to kind of set the table here and provide a framework. So I'm actually going to borrow this from what many are talking about right now in the world of AI and getting your data ready for AI. And the reason I do that is because whether you're planning on using AI applications like Copilot today or 5 or 10 years from now, it's the same 5 principles that really should be in place now with AI or without, right? And so I thought this was very well summarized, but your 5 criteria for your data should be accurate, as Richard mentioned, making sure you have the right data, you're keeping records in the right spot, and then your data should be enriched, so it should have metadata attached to it. We're strong believers in having those attributes or data about data attached to it, right? And providing that context. What is this file? What is this email, right? Really important for being able to actually find it again, and then also helping with the understanding of that. It should be unbiased. It should be secure, and that's key, as Richard pointed to. The security environment continues to gain more and more attention as we go through these various breaches and hacks and things like that. And we'll provide some recommendations for that as we roll through here. But obviously, Microsoft 365 and the Microsoft Cloud is about as secure environment as you can get these days, just given they have thousands and thousands of people working on it all the time, fighting off attacks. And the world has shifted in what used to be believed that on-premise server in the closet was more secure. Well, now it's obviously clear that they're becoming very obviously clear that the Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Cloud is the leader in security and where your documents and most important data should be stored, and then making sure your data is governed, right? And so these 5 principles, again, just it's important for getting your data AI ready, but even without that and not being sure of your timeline for a Copilot or AI like application, these are just great principles that you should make sure apply to all your information as it is right now. And with most of the data in the enterprise, 80% of it, some say more, being unstructured, it's really important to change that, right? And making sure your data is well tagged and organized, and you're not producing and maintaining redundant, obsolete, and trivial information and having duplicates and things like that. Because not only will this help your compliance and governance side of your business, but it'll also help you find what you're looking for, which is ultimately what you're shooting for, right? The mecca is being able to retrieve the data what you want, when you want it, and without having metadata and tags and putting things in the right spot across your organization, there's a number of challenges that arise, but certainly hurts productivity. Next slide, please, Richard. And so our suggestion, one of our key principles here is decide on your system of record, right? Hopefully that's SharePoint Online, but really making that concerted choice of what is that system of record where we're going to store our most important information, trying to eliminate the dark IT and the silos, maybe having Box show up over here and another system show up in this department. It should really be centralized, or for your most important records anyway. And so bringing all emails and files that need to be kept and finished production documents into that environment. And then utilizing metadata, right? As I alluded to on the prior slide, it's like very important for setting the context of a document, having key metadata. Every department of your business or your organization will have different metadata that they require. Examples of this in like corporate legal, it's very important to have the matter number, or maybe it's the patent number, things like that, right? Who's the counterparty on this deal, right? Things like that are super important in the corporate and in-house counsel legal environment. And so as you save your documents and organize them and put them into SharePoint, making sure they have those metadata tags can be huge. Metadata can also, or labels can also be retention as well. So keep this invoice for 7 years and then have it disposed, right? Or trigger a disposal review. So making sure you have disposition and retention labels in place as well as part of that metadata umbrella. Super important for any organization looking to improve its information governance. And then, you see the Copilot logo here again, right? If you're interested in or looking at Copilot, I know it's early days, but of course, being able to have your information in a spot where Copilot can actually look at it and read it and return results is paramount, or else it's going to be the garbage in, garbage out problem, right? Where it's there's nothing of value for Copilot to go and read to produce a good result to make your organization more productive. So super important from that angle as well. And it all comes down to breaking down the silos, bringing information into that centralized spot. If you think about the email inbox, there's actually, if you're in a big organization, thousands of individual silos across your organization. All your most important documents and emails are sitting in everyone's inboxes, right? So without bringing those into a centralized location, you're inherently creating these silos across the organization. And that's a big problem because individuals leave all the time or are terminated, and all that data is stuck there with maybe one IT individual having access. That's a big problem, right? You don't want to lose that information just because someone left your organization. So really trying to combat that, right? And so we'll show you our email manager, which helps you overcome that and bring your most important information or all of your information into SharePoint, well tagged, structured, and accessible for your organization. And then access controls, super important in any environment, but even more so as we enter the world of AI and using our documents for more things, but making sure the right people have access to the right locations within SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, and can view the right files and having those permissions in place, right? Legal team should, bad example, finance team should only be able to access finance department documents, right? Like common example, making sure those boundaries are in place so that people can't overshare information and they do have access to what they need to be able to produce the results thereafter.
Tim, Tim, before you go on, I just find that organizations are very scared about Copilot because of this whole access question and the fear that information will be revealed by Copilot to staff who aren't authorized to access it because their security controls are not always up to date and in place. Is that something you've also come across?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the short answer is they should be, right? Like there are severe risks here to oversharing information. That's why, so what we really advocate for in this domain is laying the foundation first, right? Having a plan, putting these boundaries in place before you ever even think about rolling out Copilot, right? And even when you do, still put it in a test environment and point it at certain locations for retrieving results. But definitely, yeah, put all the controls and permissions in place before you try and roll out Copilot is what we really advocate here, taking a methodical approach. So, yeah.
And this is where your classification for security is so crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So suggestion. So the what we look at is, okay, as Richard pointed to, email is the number one way information is coming into the organization. 5 of 6 records in your organization, email records, business records, whatever, 5 of 6 of them are coming in via email, right? So obviously very important to get that information into the system of record or where it should be saved, aka SharePoint. And so there's multiple ways to do this, and I'll provide a demo shortly to show you how this can be done easily, but our application lives in Outlook and allows you to move emails and attachments together or separately, either one at a time or in bulk, right? Which is so you can take up to 20 emails and move those over, punch in the metadata for those and or turn that off and put them in SharePoint. But then what we released last year, and this has been a complete game changer, is the ability to take a whole folder of emails in Outlook and move that over as well. So think of historical cleanup. Maybe you've worked with folders in Outlook historically, and you want to move those old emails over to SharePoint, but also just like project folders, for example, or if you're in corporate legal, again, or in-house counsel, like a deal you're working on, being able to move all the emails that maybe got dropped into a folder there over time within Outlook over to SharePoint as well for record keeping. So that's been phenomenal to see the uptake of that and the impact that's able to have on organizations. So the way all the modern Outlook add-ins work, especially with ours, which is fully built in the cloud, is they actually offload the job to Azure as well, which just for the user simply means running a job and processing emails and sticking them in your SharePoint doesn't slow down your day-to-day performance of Outlook. It's off running in the cloud, just doing its thing in the background. And so it unlocks quite a bit of enhancements to your daily efficiency, right? So that's why we've designed it that way. And I think users are realizing that this can be easy and therefore more likely to follow the policies and processes that are being put in place. So it's important to us to bring this right to Outlook where you're working anyway. We call it in context, because you don't want to just switch and go to another app, right? You want to be able to do this all from where you're spending your day anyway, which is in Outlook, and then being able to apply those tags to that in the process, either in the background automatically, or manually choosing to do that depending on the requirement of your organization. So, next slide, Richard. Right, so just some tips here. So leverage tools like Colligo, make life easy on yourself. Microsoft SharePoint Premium is also a good solution for helping tag information that may already live inside SharePoint. So if you've been using SharePoint for a while and you have a backlog of information without metadata on it, you can look at offerings like SharePoint Premium, and Richard and team are great to chat with on that. We can support as well, but and then leverage existing security and sensitivity baked into SharePoint. So SharePoint is coming a long way in terms of security and controls and whatnot, and so definitely take advantage of what's already in there out of the box. You can set up a lot of these things like the access controls and permissions and things like that pretty easily, but also work with organizations like Inform Consult to help set those up and guide you through that. Implement an email deletion policy. Something we advocate for here is, to get your team thinking about moving records to SharePoint and following the rules is, hey, we're going to put in a 2-year soft delete email deletion policy. So anything important needs to be moved to SharePoint. Anything that's a record needs to be moved to SharePoint, or there's a risk that that'll be deleted at some point. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2. We've seen as little as 90 days. So that'll really get people thinking about, okay, I better move this invoice or this proceeding document over to SharePoint and really help you instill best practices from a records management standpoint. And then balance governance with productivity, right? So you don't want to be so compliant and so strict around governance that it hurts your productivity. So it's really about finding the balance between those two. Conversely, you don't want to make it so everyone's super productive and collaborative and can share everything with anyone and information's flying everywhere. It really is a delicate balance between those two. So often it takes just pen and paper, thinking about how we're going to do this and what we really care about from a compliance and governance standpoint, and then trying to do that without inhibiting productivity. So make it easy, use tools to get you there, like Colligo, and then work with things like Microsoft Purview as well to help set up your labels and label management. And these are like retention labels, disposition labels, to make sure you're keeping your documents for the right amount of time, but no longer, because there is risk and security, compliance, governance risk to keeping things longer than you need to, right? And I know a lot of our government clients have certain things like this needs to be kept for 30 years. Great, we'll set up a label that keeps things for 30 years, but you don't want to keep it for 50 if it only needs to be kept for 30, right? And so work with Purview, and which is Microsoft's records management solution to help implement things like that. And again, IFC, Inform Consult, can be really helpful in that domain as well. So. Right, and with that, I will go over to a short demo. Is there any questions in the chat before I pop over? Let's see here.
No, please do feel free to ask questions in the question and answer feature. But to obviously, we've made such a brilliant explanation so far that that hasn't cropped up.
Right. Excellent. So I'll pop over and hopefully you can see Outlook here. So if I'm in my day-to-day and I receive an email with an attachment here, it can be with or without an attachment, and I want to save this to SharePoint. There's 2 principal ways to do that using Colligo. So if you can see the top ribbon here, you'll have an upload to SharePoint Colligo button. You would click that, and then at this point, you are just picking your destination, right? So where do I want to save this? Now, often for speed, you'll have my pinned locations. These might be your active matters or your active deals you're working on, or active clients, right? And you would just click the cloud upload button to move that to SharePoint. Before I do, I'm just going to show that there is an option to split out attachments. That's one of our most common questions we get. And so it can be all in one or the other, or they can be split out as you save them and receive the same metadata as you port those over. And then all the SharePoint sites that you have access to, and I'll emphasize access because that's based on your existing permissions within SharePoint, so you don't have to duplicate it. We're just reading what you have set up in SharePoint, are available down below. There's a great search if you have plenty of sites and you need to go find something a little bit buried. But generally, our clients, as they get rolling along and moving, they set up these pinned locations. And at this point, I'll just hit the cloud to upload that. We're checking for duplicates so you don't create that rot. We're pulling out metadata. We pull out 23 fields automatically. You can see here most of it is automatically filled in. This is where you can apply a retention label, and I'll hit continue because it all looks good to me. And that email's now in SharePoint. It's that easy. And there's some automation and intelligence built in to say, you saved this here last time. Do you want to save it again there next time, right? And so things like that as you get ramped up on the solution that can really drive efficiency, but it's that simple to save an email. Now, the second way, which is, again, I mentioned, has seen quite a bit of uptake, is to move a whole folder of emails, right? And so I won't walk through the full wizard, but you can see on the left-hand side here, I have a few subfolders in my inbox, bulk test and Project Cypress here. If I wanted to move a whole folder of emails over to SharePoint, instead of just going to pick my destination right away, there's just a setting called bulk copy here. And you can load the folders of your inbox. And you'll see here it's the same folders, bulk test and Project Cypress, which mimics the folders on my left-hand side. And I will hit next. And then you just go on picking your destination again. So same thing. Again, it's checking for conflicts, making sure there's no duplicates, pulling out the metadata. You can see how they're all grayed out. And I'll hit next. And the one option here before I hit continue to complete the job is there's an option for multiple occurrence. And so what this can do is set up so every week, every day, every month, it can take all the new emails in that folder and automatically move them into SharePoint. And so then it becomes almost like set it and forget it. I'm basically linking this left-hand folder in Outlook to a destination in SharePoint. Anything I drop into that folder at any time throughout my workday or my work week will automatically make its way over to SharePoint. You'll get a nice little report saying that it's been ported over to let you know and confirm that it's been done. And so that's that's as close as it gets to automatic filing while still capturing metadata in this day and age, right? And so that's been pretty revolutionary, saving people a ton of time, and happy to show more. So all you would do at this point is click next, and that would then be set up, and you'd be on your way to file a whole folder of emails. So pretty easy from that standpoint. So I'll pause there and just see if there's any questions. Well, I don't see any. Okay.
Tim, I was going to ask, can you use this in combination with rules? So you can have rules moving the emails to a folder, and then the multiple occurrence does your filing for you. So you don't even have to physically think about it. That the rules can work in combination with email rules can work in combination with your filing.
Exactly. Yeah. So email hits from Roland. All emails from Roland go to this folder, and then Colligo does the rest and takes that in the background over to SharePoint, nicely tagged, proper labels on it, and in the right destination. So
yeah, great.
Yeah. Excellent. So that's the end of the demo portion. Richard, maybe I'll pass back over to you for the closing slides there.
Okay. Give me a second. Apologies for the slight delay. Okay, so we've asked, unless we've got any more questions, and I don't see any questions, just to give a final mention that if you've been interested in what you've seen, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The email addresses are on the screen right now. You can also get in touch with Agnes, and she can arrange for either a telephone consultation from Inform Consult, where we're happy to try and address any sort of more general questions or arrange for a free trial of Colligo. Thank you very much for attending this session. I hope you found it useful, and please feel free to provide feedback to us so that we can perhaps address further topics in the future.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much.